Obviously, he wants an outpost for this knight after this bishop gets exchanged. But here, white can continue this by playing a3, attacking this bishop, and suppose after these bishop gets exchanged, now you can see at last it helps white to develop his pieces. Okay, so in the actual game after knight to a6, here instead Vishy decides to develop his bishop to g5, and that's an inaccuracy because black can easily tackle this by playing h6, which attacks this bishop, and obviously white cannot go back to h4 due to the threat of g5. So that's why at the end this bishop has to go back, but here Karpov decides to develop his bishop to bring back this bishop to e7. And that's an inaccuracy because in the next move, white is going to bring this queen to b2 so that he can push b4. So that's why in this position, instead of bishop to e7, here black must consider this move knight to a7, because suppose if white pushed b4, attacking to this pawn chain, then simply 8 takes b4, 8 takes b4, but now black can simply push c6, which stops the move b5 supported by this pawn, queen and this knight. Okay, so after bishop to e7, here Vishy goes for queen to b2, which I mentioned earlier. He wants to push b4. And that's a mistake by Karpov. But guys, let me tell you something. Why Karpov goes for bishop to f6? I mean, what's the motive behind this? Guys, here Karpov goes for bishop to f6 because suppose after rook at b goes to c1. Yeah, after this move, if Karpov is not careful and instead he plays any another move like suppose rook to d8, then now in this position white can actually sacrifice his rook by rook takes d6. This is because if black captured this rook by his bishop, now comes knight to e5 attacking this queen and this bishop, and obviously black is forced to go to this c8 to the c8 square. But if black blunders by queen to e8, then instead of capturing this bishop, white will firstly capture this pawn on c7, forking this queen and this rook, and clearly you can see that this position will be completely winning for white. So that's why now I think you all understand that this move bishop to f6, yeah, this move actually stops the move which is knight to e5. Yeah, but guys, that move's a mistake because the position of this bishop is not really good, which is better in this e7 diagonal, which eyes on this a3 pawn, and black pieces can easily coordinate towards the queen side of white. Instead of bishop to f6, here the best move will be bishop to d6, which might be the better option due to the better placement of this bishop. And after that, here Karpov goes for knight to b4, attacking this rook, and that's an inaccuracy because in this position, white can actually sacrifice his rook by rook takes c7. This is because after bishop takes c7, rook takes c7, attacking this queen, and after this queen suppose moves to d8, rook takes b7, and you can see this position is winning for white. So what can black do? Instead of knight to b4, here instead of knight to b4, the best move for black is to go for rook to e4, and we are basically doing this because you can see black pieces are in a very closed position, whereas white pieces are mobile and active. So giving up this rook will basically give some fresh air, or we can say some relief to the black pieces. But here black is still worse, hoping for some chances so that he can win. But in the actual game after knight to b4, here Vishy decides to bring his bishop to h3, attacking this queen. And now again white has option to sack this rook, but instead Anand decides to bring his rook to d2, which is a huge mistake because now Karpov finds the best move c6, attacking this knight and also pushing back the white pieces. And after this knight moves to c3, and now it's better for black to bring this queen to d6 so that he can go for g5, attacking this knight. But instead he made a mistake by playing bishop to c8, and now white has the option to bring this knight to g6, attacking this rook. And after this rook goes to f6, he attacks this knight, then simply knight to e5, which attacks this queen, and at the end you can see white successfully centralized his knight, which makes this position better for white. But guys, after bishop to c8, here Anand missed that move and instead he goes for knight to a2, asking for knight exchange. And now it's better for black to bring this bishop to c7 so that he can capture this knight. And by this he can create a double pawn structure. But instead he made a mistake by playing rook to f6, because this rook on f6 is not doing anything special. And in the next move, white will bring this knight to d3 and then reroute to e5. But Anand decides to double his rook by rook at d goes to c2. And since this c6 pawn is weak, so it's better for black to just bring this bishop to b7. But instead he made a mistake by queen to d6, because now white can easily capture on c6. So as you can see, white has chance to capture on c6, but Anand decides to go for bishop to g2. And guys, again white has chance to sacrifice this rook by rook takes c6, because after bishop takes c6, now white can sacrifice his another rook by rook takes c6, attacking this queen. And if queen takes c6, if black blunders by this, then now comes bishop to d5 check, and at the end black has to lose his queen. But after bishop to b7, here Anand missed this sacrifice again and instead he made a mistake by rook to c3. But attacking this knight might be the better option for black by playing g5, because now Anand will bring this so now Anand bring his knight to h5, attacking this rook. And now I just want you all to pause the video and try to find the next crazy move played by Vishy. And I think most of you got the move. Yes, you are right. In this position, Anand can actually sacrifice his rook by rook takes c6, which he actually does in the game. Okay, so now it's better for white to give this to capture this rook first and then go for this check. But instead, Anand decides to give a check first by his knight. Okay, so here it's better for black to capture this pawn or to give a check, but instead he goes for rook to f8. And in this position, the final move by Anand is a5. And here Anatoly Karpov resigned. Because you can see now Vishy is 2 pawns up and white will slowly convert these pawns. And yeah, that's all.